Welcome to This Explainer. Look, if you've ever found yourself totally stuck in one of those frustrating cycles, the habits, the compromises, the behaviors that you desperately want to break, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're taking a deeply compassionate but highly analytical look at an absolutely incredible tool called the Temptation Autopsy. It's essentially a framework designed to help us understand and genuinely overcome those habitual struggles. So get ready, because we're going to dive right in. There is a concept here that completely changes the game when it comes to how we view failure. Check this out. Temptation is not random. It is the convergence of spiritual drift, emotional pain, physical depletion, relational disconnection, and learned behavioral patterns. See, we so often feel like our failures are these sudden ambushes that just come out of nowhere, right? But the source material makes it incredibly clear. They aren't. They're actually highly predictable convergences. And think about it. If they're predictable, it means we can map them out. And if we can map them out, well, we can interrupt them. So here's our roadmap for today's explainer. 1. The anatomy of temptation. 2. The 5-step autopsy. 3. The quick reset strategy. And 4. Reorienting to Christ. Let's start with section 1. The anatomy of temptation. Moving from shame to investigation. Think about when medical professionals conduct an actual autopsy. They do it completely objectively, free from any shame, simply to find the root cause. We literally need to do the exact same thing with our own failures. We often buy into this myth that temptation is a spontaneous ambush or just some random event. But the clinical and theological reality is that it's a process of drift. Every major fall is actually preceded by a series of unexamined yeses to much, much smaller compromises. We slowly drift long before we ever actually drown. Moving on to section 2. The 5-step autopsy, dissecting the layers of struggle. By breaking temptation down into pieces, we can see exactly where our defenses were compromised. There are 5 interconnected layers we need to investigate: spiritual, emotional, physical, relational, and behavioral. Think of these as a diagnostic checklist for your soul and your body. Whenever you feel that familiar pull toward a bad habit, I guarantee you one or more of these systems is flashing a warning light. Let's dig into step 1, the spiritual check-in. The defining question you have to ask here is, am I seeking relief outside of God? Because so often our temptation isn't really about the behavior itself. It's actually a misplaced search for comfort or identity or relief that only Christ can provide. We really have to ask ourselves, what lie might I be believing right now about God or even about myself? This subtle shift is what experts call worship drift. A healthy spiritual state is rooted in dependence on God, anchored in truth, and always running toward grace. But when we drift, we shift into self-reliance. We start believing lies about what will satisfy us, and we end up engaging in behaviors just to avoid shame. It is a very subtle but very dangerous slide. Step 2 is emotional awareness. And here is a crucial clinical insight to remember. Emotions are signals. They are not enemies. The real danger is unmanaged feeling. Unprocessed emotional pain is what actually drives compulsive behaviors. It's known as the self-medication theory. Basically, if you are angry, anxious, or feeling rejected, and you don't actually process that emotion, your brain will automatically look for an escape hatch just to numb it out. Now, let's move to step 3, our physical state. You simply cannot separate the body from the spirit. Take a quick moment and ask yourself, are you hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? That's the HALT acronym. And hey, there's a reason the word hangry exists. It is a proven clinical concept that physical depletion severely lowers your resistance. Sleep deprivation and high stress literally impair your brain's impulse control. So honestly, sometimes the absolute most spiritual thing you can do to fight temptation is just to take a nap or eat a good meal. Step 4 deals with relational dynamics, and it really comes down to this. Sin grows in secrecy and isolation, but healing grows in safe connection. According to the research, loneliness is actually one of the most significant predictors of relapse. When we feel disconnected or we're carrying around unresolved conflict, our anxiety spikes and we are far more likely to seek out those compulsive, soothing behaviors in secret. Finally, step 5 is looking at our behavioral patterns. The absolute key here is understanding the habit loop. The cycle usually starts about 48 hours prior with really small boundary compromises. Then at 1 minute prior, a cue or trigger hits you. At 0 seconds, we execute the routine or the behavior. And 10 minutes later, we get a reward. But it is a false relief. And because of neuroplasticity, every single time we complete this timeline, we are literally wiring our brains to do it all over again. Section 3, the quick reset strategy, interrupting the cycle in the moment. Okay, so when temptation hits right now, in the moment, you obviously don't always have time to sit down with a journal for an hour. You need immediate intervention. The source gives us these 4 practical steps for a quick reset. First, you must interrupt the pattern immediately, because temptation only grows when it goes unchallenged. Second, reconnect to God, maybe by praying a piece of scripture out loud. Third, reach out to an accountability partner before you act, not just to confess after you've already failed. And fourth, reframe your distorted thoughts. Let's talk about how to execute that very first step, interrupting. We can use the 5-4-3-2-1 trauma-informed grounding technique. See, when you're tempted, your brain is in a massive fight-or-flight state, driven by the amygdala. To snap yourself out of that autopilot, you look around and name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 you can hear, 2 you smell, and 1 you can taste. Doing this physically forces your brain's logic center, the prefrontal cortex, to come back online. Once your brain's logic center is back online, you have to reframe things using principles from cognitive behavioral therapy. So when a distorted thought pops up telling you, I need this to feel better, you immediately replace it with the truthful narrative, Christ is my comfort and strength. Or what about that classic lie? Well, I've already failed today. Why stop now? We reframe it with, God's mercy is new right now. You actively have to challenge the narrative playing in your head. Let's wrap up with Section 4, reorienting to Christ, the ultimate goal of the autopsy. At the end of the day, behavior modification alone is just exhausting. We need genuine spiritual renewal. The ultimate goal isn't just resisting sin, it's returning to dependence on Christ. This entire autopsy tool isn't designed just to build up your willpower so you can white-knuckle your way through life. No, it is fundamentally designed to expose your need so it can guide you right back into the arms of grace. To make that dependence an actual reality, the source outlines these daily practices for long-term growth. Because you don't win the battle at the moment of temptation, you win it earlier by building your spiritual and emotional fitness. So conduct daily check-ins. Actually track your victories. Don't just log your failures. Engage in a supportive community. Set firm, pre-decided boundaries. Like, for example, keeping your phone completely out of the bedroom. And shift your focus to serving others. It's amazing how that protects you from the idolatry of comfort. So I want to leave you with this final thought. Ask yourself, what did I actually learn today about my triggers? And what truth would have set me free in that moment? Because when you start viewing your struggles as data rather than damnation, failure is no longer final. The autopsy is complete. The real question is, what are you going to do with the results before the next 48-hour loop begins? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning and take care.